if you feel the ground shifting under you because of AI, I would, and I know this is so much easier said than done, trust me, don't panic. Take this as an opportunity to step back and reflect on, why did you pick this career path in the first place? Because the things that got you into this and kept you in this game for whatever length of time it was, those are the clues to how you can evolve and not just survive, but potentially be more relevant than ever. Right? Like, this is your chance to, whether you really whether you want to use the tools or not. I actually have some good friends who are like completely anti AI and refuse to touch it, and they're still doing fine. So the key thing, though, is that you have to dig deep and understand, what is it that makes you special? Like, what is it that actually can't be replaced or isn't easily found in the millions of other people that supposedly share your job title, right? That's and I think in some sense that's every entrepreneur's responsibility, right? Because if there's an industry for what you do at all, that means by definition there's going to be competition. There's going to be other people offering something that, from a 30,000 foot view, looks pretty similar. So what is it that makes you different? What is it that makes your thing special, unique, and better? That's a question we all have to answer. And the better you can answer that for yourself, that actually does wonders for how you show up and interact with the kind of high-level clients you probably want to have, because they've all had to struggle with these same questions too.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome to Season 4 of Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through CFO services, consulting, and operational analytics. Now, this is Season 4, where we are focusing on companies who've either bought, sold, scaling, or excelling, right? And so again, I've been out here in these streets, what I'm saying? I'm a little connected now. And so, you start asking around and, you follow people and you start seeing some of the different things that they talk about and post. And so, there was somebody. And I'm like, this guy seems interesting. So I ain't going to spoil it. I'm not going to jump ahead. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome Sean Mabry to the podcast. What's up, man?
Hey man, thanks for having me.
All right, let's jump into it. So tell the people name of the company, and what you do.
So my name is Sean Mabry, like you said. I'm a ghostwriter and book strategist, and I'm partnered with an agency called Youngry that primarily specializes actually in podcasting. But the way we got together is kind of interesting. I'm sure we'll get into that in a moment. But essentially, they do everything from podcasts to business documentaries. They incubate brands in-house. They can then have those brands be sponsors for the podcast they help stand up. And now we're adding ghostwriting services into the mix. So a lot of the same people that want to have a podcast or be guesting on podcasts, turns out they also want a book. So that's where I come in.
Okay, so let's start from the jump. So tell us, what made you start this, get into this in the first place? Just so people know, how did he get started? How did he get into it?
Yeah, so really for the first 10 years of my career, I was a copywriter. And in much more the traditional sense that people think of that, like I was mostly writing email copy, um, video sales letters, webinars, web page copy, kind of anything you could think of under the copywriting umbrella. But the switch to ghostwriting really kind of happened by accident, because I had a friend come into a mutual connection saying, "Hey, so and so says you're the guy to write my book," and I'm like, "Well, I don't even offer that service, but I'll have the conversation." Right? And so I started giving him my feedback on what he had so far, and I ultimately decided, like, you know what, I really like this guy. Let me refer him out to someone I trust, who I know is a really good ghostwriter. And he came back and he's like, "Okay, if you say no one more time, I'll leave it alone. But I really think you're the guy." So I was like, "Okay, let's give it a shot." And here we are now. That was the first domino that led to me doing this, as my main thing. And part of what kept me going down that route was it actually connected me back to a lot of what made me want to be a writer in the first place. Like, I went to school for creative writing. I'm one of the very few people that actually has an English degree and uses it. And what I love about ghostwriting for entrepreneurs is that, I mean, you would know better than anyone. entrepreneurs lead incredibly fascinating lives, and the stories of how they ended up doing the things they're doing involve so many twists and turns, and there's so many different angles that you can find to talk about. That that's the part I really love. I love being able to take all these different pieces of what someone has done and put that together into one story that shows that it might have seemed a little bit random, might seem odd, disconnected in the moment, but I can help tease out the full story that shows that no, everything you've done is part of one great journey, and now it's a hero's journey, right? Now you get to show others how to walk that same path, or really, the more important thing is show them how to walk that path in their own lives, because no one's circumstances are going to be exactly like yours, but the principles of what you've done will carry through.
Yeah, okay. So, I got so many questions now. So,
Mm-hmm.
A, how many books have you written to date?
To date, three.
Okay, so three. All right, now here's the hard question because I know you're hearing this. So I know you finna start laughing. People are saying, "Oh man, we got AI now. We don't need you, Sean. We don't need you, baby. We can just throw this in there and we make our own book." Tell me, A, your thoughts on AI, and B, your direct response to people who would say something like that.
So my general thoughts on AI are nuanced but positive. I use AI. That's part of my own workflow. I'm certainly not anti AI. That being said, I'm also very realistic about what it can and can't do. And case in point, in the copywriting world, I have to say I have watched people that were decently competent as copywriters, not as their main thing, but they could write copy. They've gotten steadily worse because they've been using AI and leaning on it too heavily.
Worse?
Worse,
Oh wow.
worse.
Okay.
And this is a. I mean, we're seeing it a lot with AI now, but this is actually a very old problem. Anytime you introduce a new system of automation, there's always the risk of cognitive decline on the part of the user. And one of the really interesting examples of this, actually, in the world of aviation, there's a lot of really interesting research about how there was a point where the process of flying a plane became too automated, and we actually saw an increase in safety incidents because essentially the pilots were turning their brains off. They'd given over too much of their thinking to the plane versus being on the ball themselves. And so I think we're seeing a lot of that now with copywriting and really with any kind of writing that's AI assisted, is that you do have people that are turning their brains off and hoping the machine will take over everything, and they're paying the price for it. Like, that's how you get content that feels flat, that people can immediately flag as AI. And I mean, unless you're like literally marketing like AI girlfriends or something, just very, very kind of gross and mass market like that, that's not going to work. That's not going to work for sophisticated audiences, sophisticated buyers that can smell that and they don't like it. Like, nobody likes the feeling of being deceived. And the way a lot of AI use plays out is that it's essentially deception. It's like, hey, I'm going to use the AI to make it sound like I'm some sort of expert or authority, or that I just have like this my own personal brand, when really it's completely hollow and there's nothing behind that. Now, if you're using AI as an amplifier for your own voice, for your own perspective, and for your own thought process, that's a totally different conversation. And again, that's exactly what I do. Is that I do use AI as part of my workflow, but if anything, the parts that I'm using AI to do were like the really kind of grindy manual parts. The higher level strategic questions about what a book needs to really shine, I spend even more time on that now. Like, I use the AI to hammer through a rough draft and just get it done, but then I'm obsessing over the details in a whole new level because I have the bandwidth to, right? I didn't waste my bandwidth getting through that rough first draft. I just got something on paper that's in the right general shape, and now I can really dig my fingers in and make it sing, right? To me, that should be the goal of anyone using AI for any kind of creative process, is that use it to cover the baseline quickly, because it does matter, right? Like, speed matters in business, and volume matters, but never let that be at the expense of the magic, essentially. Like that, whatever it is with your personal brand or your unique philosophy on what you do, that part has to stay intact. And it's your responsibility to make sure that that's always there, even if you're using AI tools to speed up the process. I think there's maybe a part
Yeah,
two
and
to
I
that
feel
question.
no, I thought that was a great answer because I mean, even for us, like we have a heavy focus on organic social.
Hmm.
And to your point, I always wrote mine, and I'm thinking like, oh, it ain't gonna be able to keep up because I know how I talk, I know my lingo, right, my slang, and just how I write. And to your point, to amplify that took a lot of effort to do it correctly. And I was just telling somebody, even with that, like I still edit all of my before I put. I don't just go, oh, this okay, it did it, boop, and pop it in. It's okay. Let me read it. I wouldn't say this. Let me take this out. I know I would rearrange it like this. So there's still my element into it, but to your point, it amplified. I know about knowledge bases and training it and making it focus on certain things in order to get it to be more like me. So I understand. Okay, let's go to that next part. So you talked about how you use it. What about the people who are like, hey, yeah, I get that you doing all that, but I could just tell it to act like Sean, and then I don't need you.
I mean, good luck, because you'd have to dig up. You'd have to somehow dig up a lot of things I haven't talked about publicly. I mean, I'm starting to talk about it more now, but a lot of my frameworks and methodologies for it, because essentially a lot of what I'm bringing to ghostwriting now actually comes from my background in writing fiction. Like
Mhm.
I my marketing career prepared me to understand how business works and be able to talk to CEOs and founders at that level. But the actual craft of writing the book has way more to do with my background in fiction and storytelling. And it's one of those things where my if my background writing fiction has taught me one thing, it's that you can load someone up with all the rules, all the frameworks. They can you could feed an AI all the great books on the craft, and it's still only going to get them not even halfway, because what you really need is taste and the ability to figure out, like, okay, of all the different rules I could apply in this specific situation, which one do I apply? Like that's the thing about writing a book, is that in some ways a book is the most complicated form of content to write. You think of like a single social post or an email campaign or even something like a VSL. Those all have pretty well established formats, right? Like the market has basically told us what it likes in terms of that content. And every once in a while, someone will come and innovate some completely new form. But then the industry kind of adjusts to that. Everyone kind of gloms onto that structure, and then there you go. With a book, even now, like for as old as books are as a form of content, they're still wildly variable. And that's why being able to develop and apply good taste is essential for this. Like that's the one thing that, again, I'm not really scared of AI taking that part over, just because even well trained humans have to keep sharpening that knife every single day. It's not something that you learn once and then you can set it and forget it. It's something it's a practice, it's a discipline. You have to keep doing it all the time. Otherwise you lose your edge.
Yeah, that's good. I know somebody. Shout out to Cody Jefferson. He was saying how he still makes it a point to write it. Like he could use AI, but he's like, no, man. I just think there's value in me sitting down, writing it out, and it coming from me. So I fully agree that you can replace maybe the more monotonous piece, but if you don't have skill, you don't have the skill.
Right.
And we even and everybody now, oh yeah, I got AI to do me a book in 2 days, and it's like quality. Like what's that book that everybody likes? Who Not How?
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's not it. That's like I feel like that's one of the top books.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take it a step further. So now, when you're approaching a client and they're coming to you saying, "Hey, I heard you're good," and they've already had you kind of explain what you just shared about, like, "Hey, this is what AI can do, so you're right, but this is how we approach it." How do you kind of finish off and close that loop? Because I'm sure there's other people who are not as well established as you, but they may have that copy background and they're maybe more in panic because, dang, I don't really know how to answer this or close those loops. How are you? What would you suggest they focus on to continue to establish their brand, continue to get paid, as opposed to being replaced by AI.
Are you just to make sure I understand the question? Are you asking in terms of like what other like copywriters and ghostwriters should do?
I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. So, in other words, we know that you're not the only copywriter, right? And we
Right.
know maybe 5, 10 years ago, like everybody needed one. Versus now, the common thought is like we've been talking about. I can just go to AI. Now you just explained no, because essentially you're missing the soul of the book, the frameworks, etc. So if you were to mentor some young copywriters right now,
I see.
or maybe some older ones that don't know how to transition, what are some of the things you would tell them so that they're not living in fear or scared about it, but they know how to operate in this new world?
That's a really good question. And for me, the reason why I picked this path, aside from it kind of falling in my lap, like I was saying, is that I realized that it dovetails with just who I am. Like my values, my personality, my ideal workflow, all of that lines up with ghostwriting in a way that honestly, like even more so than copywriting ever did. I mean, I did fine with copywriting, and I'm grateful for that time, but it still never quite felt as smooth as ghostwriting feels now. And so I would say the biggest thing, if because I know a lot of people are struggling with that exact scenario you were talking about, if you feel the ground shifting under you because of I would, and I know this is so much easier said than done, trust me, don't panic. Take this as an opportunity to step back and reflect on why did you pick this career path in the first place? Because the things that got you into this and kept you in this game for whatever length of time it was, those are the clues to how you can evolve and not just survive, but potentially be more relevant than ever. Right? Like this is your chance to whether you really whether you want to use the tools or not. I actually have some good friends who are like completely anti AI and refuse to touch it, and they're still doing fine. So the key thing though is that you have to dig deep and understand what is it that makes you special. Like what is it that actually can't be replaced or isn't easily found in the millions of other people that supposedly share your job title, right? That's and I think in some sense that's every entrepreneur's responsibility, right? Because if there's an industry for what you do at all, that means by definition there's going to be competition. There's going to be other people offering something that, from a 30,000 foot view, looks pretty similar. So what is it that makes you different? What is it that makes your thing special, unique, and better? That's a question we all have to answer. And the better you can answer that for yourself, that actually does wonders for how you show up and interact with the kind of high level clients you probably want to have because they've all had to struggle with these same questions too.
Okay, let's keep rolling. So now looking back, what's a move you made that changed the game for your growth?
Ooh, there's a lot of them. uh, I mean, one of the things I'm sure a lot of your people will be able to relate to is that I'm a little bit of a coaching junkie, but the thing is, every every time I've invested in myself in that way, it has paid off, and it hasn't always paid off linearly, right? Like sometimes it's taken years for some of those things to fully blossom and see ROI. But the thing that kind of building on the my last point, the thing that seems more true now than ever is that the one thing that's never going to go away in your career is you. Like if you continue to develop yourself, that will always pay off. Like technology can change, markets can change, trends can die out and whatnot. But if you continue to make yourself a stronger and more capable entrepreneur, that'll always pay off. And so I've I've done all kinds of different coaching and honestly, and some of it was just dead end experiments where I just learned like, okay, that's not for me, right? But at least I know. Um, like not to throw too many stones here, but I will say I went really deep down the meditation rabbit hole, and I'm just not really for me. like I know some people swear by it, personally, I'd much rather go for a good walk. I'd much rather be at least somewhat active. But that's me. And again, I think that's something that's super individual. We all have to kind of experiment and figure out what works best for us. Um, and yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that's made a difference for me.
Okay, cool. Tell me something you've learned about business early on that you had to like completely unlearn, right? Because I think like a lot of times as business owners, we go in thinking, I'll use me, oh, I got to work like 10, 12 hours a day. And if I'm not, then I'm being lazy and all these types of things, right? Versus now, I work more on the 7 to 8 hours. But when I'm here, like, let's be locked in, let's go get it. And I just use my time a lot differently. What about you?
That's, I mean, I have a very similar version of that, which is that I started as an employee. Like when I first got into copywriting, I was literally working in house at an office, and which was kind of unusual for copywriters in this space. And not only that, I did it for 4.5 years. So I, I spent a good amount of my early career as an employee, and shifting from that mindset to working even just as a freelancer, right? Which I do think is not quite the same thing as being a founder or entrepreneur, but I think it kind of exists along the same spectrum where you have slightly more risk and slightly more responsibility than just being an employee. But that being said, you're still working for clients that have shouldered even more risk and even more responsibility. So just making that shift forced me to, similar to what you were saying, think about my time very differently. And I think one of the toughest things that I had to learn is that it's very easy as an employee to assume, like, okay, I have a task list for any given day. And as long as I get through that task list, I'm good. And the reality of being an entrepreneur or even just a freelancer is that that's only true after a certain point. Like after you have things really, really, really dialed in, maybe you can kind of put yourself on autopilot in that way. And even that is temporary, right? Because it's only a matter of time until some sort of disruption happens and you have to get back in the arena, right? And ultimately I think the mindset I've learned to adopt is to just always be in the arena. But to also take time to smell the roses, right? Like take the moments to recharge, disconnect, step outside the business because you're never guaranteed those anymore. Like employees have weekends. Entrepreneurs really don't. Unless you would enforce it, right? Unless you put your foot down and say, nope, this, like some days are a no-go zone, right? I don't even touch my email or whatever it is. And I think that's really important because especially when you're locked into something you're really passionate about and you really care about, and you know that there's huge upside, it is very, very, very tempting to just never turn off. But we all know where that leads, right? Like it doesn't, and I think this is the hardest thing for a lot of guys to accept, especially guys, is that it we make it this like weird measure of our moral worth, right? Like, oh, like I deserve this because I can just charge and charge and charge and charge and never ever stop. But the reality is, for one thing, we're all human, right? Like you will have a stopping point. And two, when it comes to creativity, rest is essential. Like being able to step away from a project, and it's funny, my screenwriting coach used to call it the boys in the basement. Like he would be at any given point in a screenplay where he was stuck on something, he would intentionally stop, walk away, go take a nap, shower, walk, whatever, and let his subconscious put the pieces together, right? Because at a certain point, your conscious mind is not going to solve that problem. It can't. It's not designed for that, right? Like deep creative work requires these really subconscious, almost invisible connections that form when you're not actively working on the thing. And I think as entrepreneurs, whatever industry you're in, we all need that. We all need to consciously build in that time so that we can form those connections. Because ultimately, those are the things that allow you to make leaps and bounds rather than incremental progress. You can work your way through incremental progress, no problem. But if you want to have those leaps and bounds, it, that's where real creativity is required.
Yeah, that's legit because I mean, I remember, I'll never forget. This would have been almost 4 years ago, and I met a millionaire. Well, they were doing more than just a million, but she said the exact same thing, that you have to put time into your calendar and schedule for your brain to just be creative, for you to think, for you to process. Because if not, you're just go, go, go. Like today, for example, I know for me, like everything is back to back. There's no time to think or process versus when I go to the gym and that car right there or the car right back, or when you take a shower, all of a sudden you get all these ideas and you're like, why couldn't I think of that earlier? You didn't give your brain the time earlier to really think through and process that. So I love that and how you phrase that. Okay, let's take that here then. Okay, so let's go to the finance side, because we do accounting finance, so we got to ask. Mm-hmm. So tell me what is one of the biggest curveballs financially that hit you as you started growing? Because I think in general, the regular people or even business owners, oh, okay, I'm just going to keep making more and more money, and it's just going to keep compounding over time, and I'm going to be at $1 million. Like, that's not realistic. So tell me, like, what was one for you where you were like, oh man, this is really real?
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest one was I had at the time, my biggest copywriting retainer, which had kind of ballooned out to the point where really that was like pretty much all I was doing. And there's a lot that went into that. Part of that was like just the kind of scope creep, which at least I was smart enough to negotiate the retainer rate to match the scope creep. But even still, like I was so maxed out on my bandwidth between that and also being a new father, like the idea of trying to like squeeze more work into the bucket just didn't make sense. And then when that retainer was dropped, I was like, oh, okay, I got to figure out something new here. And that was part of the kind of chain reaction that actually led into the ghostwriting, because it, on top of everything else, like I realized that as nice as it is to have a retainer for that stable floor, it's kind of a trap, because especially when you have like a big whale retainer like I had, because in a sense it's very similar to being on a paycheck as an employee. Like you get used to just that guaranteed number every month, right? For X amount of work. And that can blind you. And the fact that it was, can soak up your bandwidth too. Like, as I'm sure you know, as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to seize bigger and better opportunities as they arise, right? Like you can't get stuck in the rut of just doing the same kind of thing for the same kind of result over and over again. Like I said, like we were talking about a few questions back, that only lasts for so long. There will always be something that knocks that off course. And now with the ghostwriting, part of what I'm really intentionally building is how do I set this up so that I don't ever lull myself into sleep again, right? Like how do I keep myself on my toes? Because that's the one thing I've learned is like the real danger of success is exactly that. It can lull you into this false sense of security and the longer you go, the worse it can get, right? This, between like lifestyle creep and just the kind of creature comfort of like, hey, I'm making good money. But it's that old cliche. Sometimes you have to give up the good to go after the great. And you can wait until your hand is forced, or you can intentionally build those systems from the beginning so that you're always moving towards the great. And that's exactly what I'm focused on now.
I love it. Okay, you said like three different things. All right, you talked about scope creep. You talked about whales. I love that part personally on whales because we've had to do that with certain clients too, where it's, hey, I'm glad you're making a lot of money, but let's make sure we're diversified, because what we don't want is, what if they just wake up and they change their mind, or they get bought out, or they bring somebody in house, then we're stuck. So I love how you are super aware about that. I want to go back to what you said about scope creep though. Mm-hmm. I would think, I'm not a copywriter, but I would think people probably really like try you a lot on that. Like, man, come on, just redo this chapter. Or like, man, you can't just add it. It's not that many words. How do you deal with that? Because of course you're in the business of words and formatting. So it's not as simple as just delete, retype, done. It's creative process, the frameworks you mentioned. So, like, how would you work through scope creep if your main thing is content, copywriting, etc.?
Ultimately, my solution is to price it in. Like I, when it comes to the retainer, like part of why I just kept increasing that retainer over time is that it's like I don't want to have to nickel and dime you over the words. I'd rather just be like, okay, this is the level we're operating at now. Here's what it costs, right? And then with the ghostwriting, it's a little bit different because it's per project. Obviously, we charge per book, but even still, like the way that I price out those packages accounts for the fact that I expect you to have edits towards the end of the project. I expect you to find like little random odd things that you want to tweak, and because I realize like how important that is to the creative process, I don't want to undercharge so that then that feels like a burden on the back end, right? Let me just charge premium rates up front, and with the understanding that like my responsibility, especially for this price tag, is to get the thing done and excellent. I don't want to have to negotiate on that part. I want to have to negotiate on the excellence of the product. Let's just charge what we have to charge so that I can deliver excellence, right? And I think that is its own mindset that I've really had to develop over time. And I know that's something a lot of people struggle with in the beginning, where it can feel like, oh, I'm being reasonable. I'm just gonna baby step my way up to premium work, and it's like that's not really how that works, right? Like you have to make the bold first move and say like, look, this is the level of service and the standard that I want to set, and then this is the price tag I have to charge, have to, in order to make that happen.
I love that answer because I know that's a heavy, heavy emphasis for us now with a lot of our clients is pricing. Is your pricing profitable? Because if it's not, then to your point, now you got to have that awkward conversation, go back. Hey, I know we said this versus I love how you said, hey, know your worth, know that you're striving for excellence out the gate, and let's set this number here, which, yes, it may be above the status quo, but I feel comfortable. I'm happy when you ask me to make a revision versus stumbling through, oh, we're tripping off scope creep, etc. So I love that you already have that down. All right, another thing you mentioned, you talked about family,
Mm-hmm.
and we know family is important. All right, tell people you don't have to don't tell us names, of course, but like
Sure.
how many kids, etc.
We've got one little boy who just turned 2.
Just turned two. Okay. Now tell us about that because, of course, it's one thing like we talked about earlier. Man, I'm grinding. 12-hour days. Let's get it. I'm doing what we got to do. Then all of a sudden the wife get pregnant. It's like, oh. And then they had a baby and that baby mess up their sleep. And it's like, oh, now that they're two, like how have you adjusted incorporating that 2-year-old into your business world?
That's been a whole journey, man. How much longer you got? To try to give you the short answer, at first, my wife and I, because my wife has her own business, and so at first we tried to do this sort of like 50-50 split of like basically like 50%. We both were like 50% business time, 50% parent time, and that frankly just didn't work. Like eventually we looked up and realized like this is burning us both out like crazy. Like this is not going to do it, and so she decided to not completely shut down her business, but scale it back, take on more of the parenting duties. And then I basically went back to essentially my full time schedule, but with pockets carved out throughout the week so that she could still, for one, just have like sanity and time to herself, but also have time to keep the minimum viable dose going in her business. And that's actually worked really well. We've gone to a place where that flow feels really good, especially now that he's starting preschool. That's going to help a lot. Um, but I think the thing that I kept coming back to is as hard as it can be to juggle both of those at once. The thing that I kept coming back to was what is it going to look like 10 years from now when he asks, "What does Daddy do?" Right? What does Daddy do for work? Will I be able to look him in the face and tell him what I do and feel proud of it? Right? To me, that became the far more important question than whatever stress I'm dealing with day to day, right? Like as long as I'm building something where I can show it to him one day and say, this is what daddy does. Isn't that cool? And be like, yeah. Right. Or maybe he won't care, right? That's up to him. But at least I'll know that this is something that I know is bringing real value to the world and doing something important. And even beyond just the money it brings into our household, which obviously that's really important too. But I can say, look, the reason why Daddy works so hard is for this, right? Because that's ultimately what I want for him too. Is I want him to be able to go and create something important in his life as well. And I know that that doesn't happen in by living a problem free life. Nobody gets a problem free life, but especially not if you're going to be an entrepreneur, right? Especially if you're going to set out to do something important. And so the most important thing I think is to model for him what it looks like to juggle all those plates, not to try to shelter him from it, right? Or try to make it look easier than it actually is. Like, forget all that, right? Like, let him see my battle scars. Let him see the sacrifices and the choices I've had to make, so that when he has to make those same choices himself one day, he at least has an example.
Yeah, that's what's up. Okay, let's take it a step further. So I love the fact that you said like wife has business, I do. What are some things that you guys do to like stay on the same page? Because I got 3 kids, so I know it's like we already got our stress from being parents and trying to handle that. So like, what are some things that you guys do to reconnect having a young child, so that way you guys just stay madly in love with each other?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things we used to do this a lot, pre baby because it was easier. But with him going into preschool now, we're planning to bring this back, which is just a weekly date night. Now it's going to be a weekly date lunch for preschool, but even still, like we found ways to like oh let's at least like have a special dinner together, at least once a week, during his first 2 years. And as he gets older, it'll be easier and easier to carve out that time to like, actually get away and do something. But even little things like that, like if we couldn't, because the date night thing we've been doing like for years, even before he was born. So finding ways to maintain the tradition, even if you can't do it 100% the way you did before kids,
Yeah.
was really important for us. And and it's funny. One of the things that really has come up a lot the last couple of days is when we were first dating, we had a shared journal that we wrote together, and literally, like, it's actually about a book length thing now, but we haven't really updated it much recently, just because you know. But
Kids.
that having that as something to go back to like remind ourselves of like how we got here as a couple is really powerful. And I think there's so much power in whatever way you can do it in documenting the journey of your relationship. There's countless ways to do it, right? You can do like ours is literally just a Google Doc that we started together. But, it's a scrapbook, right? We have our little family album app for pictures of the kiddo, and now it's being able to look back through that too. Like I find it really centering to just go back and see everything we've gone through up to this point, and to remember that for each of those moments, if I really dig into it, I can kind of remember what was stressing me out at that point. But the thing I really remember is the magic. Like that actually lasts so much longer than whatever I was wigging out about that day, right? And so if I can apply that perspective to right now, it helps even things out, right? And be like, hey, you know what? We're gonna be laughing about this someday, right?
Facts. Yeah, I love that because I mean we got photo albums, of course, and it's like, dang, y'all will never be this small again. But I love that. Bro, it's crazy because like now they're 10, 8, and about to be 4. And like what we did kind of similar is I would just start recording like our trips and stuff that we would do. And I uploaded them to like my personal YouTube. And so like the girls can go back now and go, I don't even remember when you took us here, or I don't even remember that, which I think is so cool because it's like, yes, we have all of these memories for you to be able to enjoy and go back to. So I love that. I love date lunch while he's at school. See, we homeschool, so we don't get that. But what we do, like we call it boo time. And at night, like we got our own shows that we'll watch. So like lately, we've been on Scandal. I don't know how we ended up on Scandal, but we're on like season 5 now. And then I'll find different shows, So like that's kind of our time. Once the kids are in the bed, we'll either be eating and watching the show, or like Fridays we used to do date night, but then when you have 3 kids, it'd be a lot harder for people who want to watch your kids. So we would DoorDash, like what we do now. We'll DoorDash our food in, and so it's still date night from wherever we want, but we're at the house. Kids are upstairs, they're asleep. We're at our house, so I love that. All right, as we begin to land the plane, I got a good one for you. If you could go back in a time machine and you go to 18 or 22-year-old you, but you know every single thing you know right to this second, and you get 30 seconds to go back and talk to 18 or 22-year-old you, what do you tell them?
Only 30 seconds?
Only 30 seconds.
Okay. Trust your gut. Trust your gut and trust your taste.
That's really why was you telling that? Trust is good. What were you dealing with at 18 where you like,
when I was 18, so 18 would have been starting college. It's funny. I went to school thinking I was going to be an actor. I actually I had done a ton of theater in high school, and when I went to college, I was planning a dual major in theater and creative writing. And really, the only reason I didn't is because my school, you had to apply into the theater program in your second year. So I spent my entire first year just doing literature, and by the end of it, I was like, I think that actually this is all I need. Like, I love. There's so much here. I love this. I'm just going to go all in on this. So then, fast forward to when I graduate at 22. By that point, I was so disillusioned with the world, and so I could hardly even imagine that my skill set was worth anything, right? That there even was a career for someone like me. And man, was I wrong, right? And if anything, what I would tell, if I could add a little bit to that back then, what I would tell him is to keep an open mind, right? Like, look beyond the things you saw people talking about in college. Like, don't assume that being a writer has to mean, writing literary fiction or becoming even like a sci-fi or fantasy author, which has there's kind of very specific lanes for that, at least there were back then. There are so many different ways to write, and not just write, but tap into the magic of writing, the part that you really love, the part that is instinctual to you. That thing can be applied in so many different ways. So just go try it, right? Go do it. Go experiment sooner with doing that in totally different new context, right? And don't see business as a dirty word, because I did back then. That's a big thing I had to unlearn. Business is simply the process of people exchanging value, and that can be done in the service of beautiful, important things. So go find the people who are doing that and help them do it, right? Use your magic to help amplify the great stuff they're doing. It really can be that simple. The part that gets in the way is all these assumptions that we're taught about this is how you're supposed to get a job. This is what a real, quote unquote, career path looks like. This is what a safe career path looks like, right? All those assumptions that are just the byproduct of other people's experience. That's the stuff you need to get rid of. That's the stuff you need to be able to walk away from to find the thing you are really meant to do.
Okay. All right. Well, this is the end of the podcast. So just in case people are like, man, I like this guy, I actually need his help. Tell the people again, name of the company and how they can get in touch with you.
That's the easiest way to find me is on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm sure Cameron will be able to link those in the show notes. Just hit me up, send me a message. Very approachable. And then the name of the company is Youngry. So it's spelled like young plus hungry, Youngry. Yeah, Youngry.
There you go. All right, y'all. So you heard it here. So we have somebody who, yes, just because AI is coming does not mean the end of the world. It should be able to, if you're the copywriter, amplify what you do and take it to another level. It should be able to free you up from those lower level tasks so that you spend more time making something even greater because you get to stay in your deep focus zone. But even while you're doing that, how you can still have balance, spend time with the family, keep up that time with the wife, and come up with some different rituals and family patterns to keep that flame going. So these are the type of people that we want to bring on season 4. Hopefully next time we won't have a malfunction with the camera. So if you're watching this on YouTube, we're sorry. Yeah, I don't know what happened. But audio wise, you're good. So if you want to meet people like Sean, of course, reach out to him. We're going to make sure all those links are there for you. But otherwise, we cannot wait to see you on the very next episode of Legacy's Journey. If you love this, make sure you share it. We're going to have the clips out and all those different things. Share it, like it, put your comment on how you feel about it, so that way we can continue to bring the best people for you. With that being said, as we always say, until next time, take care of yourselves.